poppin', yo? Welcome back to another YouTube video, and today I watched a movie on Netflix called Superbad. It's a movie that I've wanted to watch for a while because I've seen it on TikTok advertised, and I've seen it in the memes with McLovin, and the Muhammad meme is fucking everywhere, so I decided to watch it finally after putting it off for so long. And it is a movie that came out in the early 2000s, and it is produced by Seth Rogen. I think he directed it, as he directs quite a few movies nowadays. He directed the new Turtles movie, he did Bad Neighbors 1 and 2, and he also did Superbad, and he also does Invincible as well, which is really cool. And he did this as well, and I'm going to be honest, this isn't one of his greatest movies, and this is a pretty good tie-in to two of the other reviews that we're doing in the future. We are doing Poor Things, which has Emma Stone in it, which is also in this movie, and we're doing Invincible Season 2, which Seth Rogen also directed. So this is a good tie-in to two of the other things I'll be watching later on this week, so do stay tuned for that. But let's get into Google real quick before we go into the actual story. And two high school best friends decide to have a memorable party before bidding farewell and going different colleges, but things go haywire and they land in major trouble. That is like the bare bones of the story. They are constantly talking about drugs, constantly talking about alcohol, constantly talking about sex, and everything like that, like all normal college kids do, because I've never been to college, so I wouldn't know, so I'm just going to assume that it's what they talk about. And that's pretty much how Seth Rogen feels like. He feels like that is all they talk about, too. And they basically go into school, and they basically get asked by Emma Stone to bring alcohol to a party that night. And they know that their friend, or their questionable friend, Fogel, has a fake ID, which is called McLovin. So they send him with $100 to go get this alcohol. They then ditch him to go look at this girl's tits. Like, they genuinely ditch him to go look at a girl's boobs. And when they come back, the police are there because the store was robbed. The police then take Fogel in and do a load of activities with him. They do like gun shooting, they take him to the bar, they stop a criminal, they do this, that, and the other, which is all very exciting and new to him, and they all have a grand time. And it all goes wrong when they hit their friend Seth with a car. However, how they got to that point was Seth and Evan had to go find another way to get alcohol. So they went to this adult party that was happening on the same night and tried to steal alcohol. Evan decided to run away, and then he decided to go and use the phone in the house to call his girlfriend, or his sort of crush, which goes horribly wrong. And he ends up having to sing for people and gets involved with a fight because Seth was dancing with a girl, got period blood on his leg, and stole a bunch of beer. They managed to get out, and then he gets hit by a car. They then get chased to Emma Stone's party, and they all basically, Fogel does the deed. Evan doesn't want to because she's too drunk and he isn't. And Emma doesn't want to do it with Seth. So that ends his goal, and he almost passes out headbutting her. Seth then sees the police coming in. He runs out, grabs Evan, carries him out because they fell out, but he feels mean for leaving him. And then we have Fogel, obviously being found by the police. They admit that they knew he wasn't 25, and they just saw some of them in him. So they went and did a joyride. They burnt the cop car and shot a bunch of holes in it. And that's where their story really ended. And the other two just went to the mall, and the girls were there, and they went their separate ways going on individual dates. I'm going to be honest, the start of the movie was funny, good, entertaining. The end of the movie was funny, good, and entertaining. The middle bit was boring. I genuinely didn't like Seth and Evan in that party that they went to of older people. I felt like it was boring, it was dragged out way too long than it needed to be, and it was just slow, unfunny, like absolute babble. I loved McLovin's story, him going with the cops, that was funny. It was so sort of random and surreal, but it just felt like that the entire movie. It just felt like a load of random stuff that happened one after another. It was just a list of stuff that happened. It wasn't a cohesive story. And I feel like the stuff that happened in between getting to the party and getting the alcohol could have been slimmed down a little bit. This movie did not need to be 2 hours long. That is all I'm saying. This movie did not need to be 2 hours long. It was probably rare for a movie of its time to be 2 hours long, but it didn't need to be. I felt like they pushed the boundaries a little bit. I'm glad that they got the girls in the end, even though they fucked up severely, and that they really shouldn't have got the girls in the end after everything that happened. And they didn't really get into a lot of trouble. There was no like consequences for anything they did. They they didn't really get into trouble with the police. They didn't get any trouble with the parents, which was like one of the main sort of plot points near the start of the movie, where his car got towed and he couldn't go home because his parents would get angry because his car was towed. But nothing ever came from that plot point. Like that plot point was useless, and it just made them get the bus. That was it. That was all they had to do, was get the bus, and the bus was used as a pretty okay plot point, but that was it. That there was nothing that came from his car being towed, like which everyone expected there to be, or I did at least, because they made like a massive deal about it near the start of the movie, like his car was towed, but nothing came from it. There was no sort of punishment, there was no sort of intervention. His parents didn't come and yell at him, nothing like that. It just completely got forgotten about. Seth Rogen also stars in all of his movies that he does direct, and he was one of the police officers, and he was quite funny. I'm going to be honest, his character was one of the better characters of the movie, as well as Fogel or McLovin. He was pretty good, and there is a lot of memes from this movie, which I feel like persuaded me to watch this, and I'm going to be honest, I regret watching it. I feel like my view on this movie was a lot better before I watched it, so I really didn't need to watch this movie. You know, I felt like I got the gist of it from the TikTok clips that I watched, but I wanted to see the whole thing. I don't like sitting on TikTok and just scrolling endlessly. I like to watch movies. I like to watch YouTube, something with a little bit of substance to it. And yeah, I kind of regret it. I kind of regret watching this one. There is other movies which I could have watched, which would be a better use of my time. And I do feel like I have a very uncommon opinion, because I see people ranting and raving about how good this movie is. I think it hasn't aged well. I'm going to be honest. The comedy is very bare bones and basic, constantly talking about sex, drugs, and alcohol, as we know Seth Rogen to do. And he's sort of moved away from that now, but that was like all the range back in the day. And I'm not going to lie, to start with, it was quite funny. But they use the same jokes over and over again, and they sort of doubled down on jokes. And at the time, I guess they were funny, but not nowadays. So this movie hasn't really aged too well, but it did still get a couple of giggles out of me. Not too many, but a good couple. I did laugh like a good like 3 or 4 times towards the start and towards the finish, which I do feel like are the better parts of the movie. I feel like it had a really good opener to hook you in, and then it sort of loses you towards the middle, but then as it starts coming to a close, it hooks you again. Towards the middle, I did get bored and I did go on my phone, so there is that, and I do feel like it is a 5 out of 10 movie. The 5 out of 10 part of the movie is how I feel like it is. It just has to be the 5 out of 10. And I'm glad I watched it. I probably will never watch it again. It's a mediocre movie if you have nothing else to watch, but there is better things out there. So the 5 out of 10 works. The 5 out of 10 works for it. And I'm going to be honest, Emma Stone was barely in it. She was like a massive marketing point, I do believe, when looking at all the posters and stuff, but she was in it for all of 10 minutes. It's like how, what's she called? Zendaya was marketed for Dune 2, or Dune 1, and she was only in it for about like 3 to 8 minutes out of the entire 2-hour movie. It feels like that. That's how I felt when I was like seeing all the trailers and all the clips of this movie. She was barely in it, and she was like one of the main plot points. She was the one that Seth wanted to get with, and part of me thinks that this is like a self story, like one of Seth Rogen's younger antics, but I don't know. It made me feel like this was like a younger self story that he was doing, like a real life story that actually happened to him. But then again, I feel like it was way too crazy, way too hectic to actually have happened, with all the shit that randomly went on in between the parties. But other than that, there isn't much else. It's got some really famous actors in it, so the actors are obviously good. But the story is like the weakest point. There's no CGI, there's nothing like that. It's just like a slice of life basic movie, and it's just boring in the middle. Like, the story is okay. It's mediocre. I haven't seen a story like this done before. I don't think. Or I can't think of anything that is similar to. So I feel like it is unique in that sense, but I felt like it dragged too long. I felt like it kept going and going, and every time I felt like they were getting somewhere, it put you back to square one. So you just felt like you wasted that like last 20 minutes of them doing a plot point. But other than that, Seth Rogen has got better at directing movies and TV shows, so I feel like he's a lot better there. But I'll see you all in the next one. Hope you'll have an excellent day. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of this movie. Let me know about the movie that you want to see me do next. And I did shit on TikTok a little bit in this video, but if you do want to check out my TikTok, there's a link in the description where you can do that. I do a load of trailer reactions and a load of other funny videos, which you can check out there, and is in the link tree in the description of this video. There is other things in the link tree as well, like my Cameo, my Instagram, my Facebook, and my Snapchat, so you can all take a look at that as well if that is your cup of tea. But if you do want to consider staying here on YouTube, I have loads of other videos for you to check out. And I know 98% of you are recurring viewers, and you're not subscribed. What's that about? So go ahead and click that subscribe button. It's completely free. You can always change your mind later if you decide you don't actually like me. But that has been your daily scheduled film review. So I'll see you all next one. Hope you all have an excellent day, and goodbye. Stay home and stay safe.